Hello, hello, my mischievous and beautiful hive. Welcome to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we're looking at the horrors of tuberculosis. I'm serious. No, yeah. I know it says vampires, but the bottom line is tuberculosis. Uh, and we'll get into it. But I want to, before I get too far into things, I want to say thank you so much to the Detroit Atheist Queen. Bree, you don't know how much you are loved. You are my friend, and I'm not going anywhere. Well, I'm glad you're here, Kelly. That's a $10 super chat. Appreciated it so much. And then my unfinished, I would say my unfinished journey, it might be the soccer. I don't know, but it says, Hail Nero, Hail Hive Sci, and Hail the community that loves Bree. Oh, well, thank you all. Everything is tuberculosis, says Savage Minnow, who gave those two clowns brains without training wheels. And we're talking about Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson discussing evolution, which is something neither one of them understands. Oh my goodness. So yeah, today we are talking about vampire, specifically a vampire in New England by the name of Mercy Brown. Now, Mercy Brown, you can still see her gravestone. I do not believe that she's in the grave, but Mercy Brown lived in the 19th century, and let's see here. I'm not going to present this solo. I'm going to present this as a review of this Curious World coverage. Now, this is a big channel. They got 245 subscribers, like a fraction of the number of videos. So their videos are very successful compared to like a channel like mine where someone actually comes on the screen and does live stuff. But looks like they mostly do a lot of true crime kind of stuff and Red Lake murders, When Nature Unearthed the Dead, The Woman in the Sewer, Ghost Stories of Canada. Yeah, so there's ghost stories attached in here too. But today, they're going to teach us about this vampire incident. And I picked this channel specifically because I like the guy's accent. So I'm that shallow about it.
The body of 19-year-old Mercy Brown.
Here we go. I had to unmute. Not that there's any sound right here or anything.
In 1892,
there it starts.
The body of 19-year-old Mercy Brown was exhumed from a Baptist church cemetery in Exeter, Rhode Island. Her body was surprisingly well preserved, a fact that led locals to believe that she wasn't truly dead. This is a story of Mercy Lena Brown, and although chilling and bizarre in nature...
Glad you could be here, American Strangeness.
It's just one story.
Speaking of channels you should subscribe to, American Strangeness is one of them. Yeah. They coined the term Thunder Crow. They're a fellow folklorist cryptozoologist like myself.
Among many like it that span over 100 years.
Curious World, that's the channel. And man, oh man, I want to go down into the maps. And I do got this on the maps. I just hate my maps now. I hate them. And people are like, oh, you just give it time. You get used to it. It'll become second nature. You'll navigate it. It's like, no. My old maps flowed so good. They were a globe and they swirled. And I could rotate and zoom in and look at stuff from different angles. And it's all gone now. All gone.
A man by the name of George Brown, the patriarch of his family, which aside from himself included his wife Mary Eliza, his son Edwin, and his two daughters Mary Olive and Mercy, lived in Exeter, Rhode Island. The year was 1883. In
Now,
December
probably the most important thing about 1883 is that it was 100 years before I was born. That's probably the most important part, right?
mother and wife Mary Eliza died from tuberculosis, which at the time was known as consumption. The following year, Mary Olive, at the age of just 20...
Let me read a quick breakdown of tuberculosis. I think most of us are familiar with it, but I'm just going to read like the intro paragraph on the wiki page, just so that we're kind of all on the same page of what the condition is. Tuberculosis, also known colloquially as White Death, or historically as consumption, is a contagious disease usually caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, MTB bacteria. Tuberculosis generally affects the lungs, but can also affect other parts of the body. Most infections show no symptoms, in which case it is known as an inactive or latent tuberculosis. A small portion of latent infections progress to active disease that, if left untreated, can be fatal. Typical symptoms of active TB are chronic cough with blood contained in the mucus, fever, night sweats, weight loss. Infection of other organs can also cause a wide range of symptoms. So it's pretty nasty infection.
Suffered the same fate. In 1891, Mary Olive's brother Edwin, known as a strong and healthy young man, also contracted the disease, and his health saw a rapid decline. In an attempt to rid himself of the all-consuming disease, he moved away to a Colorado Springs sanitarium, designed to treat those with consumption, in the hope that the warmer climate would save him, and for some time, although still suffering, he clung to life. When Edwin Brown returned to Rhode Island in 1892, he found his 19-year-old sister Mercy in the grips of the disease. She had been suffering for months, and it appeared that she was now on the brink of death. In January of 1892, Mercy Brown died at the age of 19. Her obituary simply read, Miss Mercy Lena Brown, who has been suffering from consumption, died Sunday morning. Because they were apparently the only family in the area affected, it was suggested to George that his family may be cursed. Not only that, but such was the level of superstition at the time, people began to believe that the Brown women were actually undead and were thriving off the life force of Edwin.
Wait a second, though, because they say, like, oh, the superstition at the time. This wasn't like, Salem witch time. This isn't 1685 or whatever. This is 1883. This is just 120 years ago. They would we come a long way since then. I've come across old newspaper ads for snake oil medicine that were supposed to cure TB. Truly insidious. Yeah, there was no. Yeah, that's what people like. There was no regulation. There was no consumer protection in place at all. You could just sell whatever you want and claim it does whatever you need it to. Absolutely. So the thumbnail shows a sign reading mystery hole. Is that it's a new term for cloaca or maybe vaginosis? Vaginosis. No, I just liked that image and thought it was funny.
George Brown was faced with great pressure from a scared community when asked...
The Hive can be the mystery hole. Maybe I should change the name of this channel to Mystery Hole.
...for permission to exhume...
Actually, I kind of like that.
...wife and daughter's bodies. If the Brown women showed any sign of life, their vital organs would be destroyed. A ritual that was hoped to stop the spread of the contagion and save Edwin's life, not to mention others who may be affected. The local doctor, Harold Metcalf, thought the ritual to be absurd, but agreed that George needed to come up with a satisfactory solution to calm down the panicked townspeople. George Brown reluctantly gave 4 friends permission to have his wife and daughter's bodies exhumed.
Mel's Hole. I think I did cover Mel's Hole at some point, didn't I? Yeah, there it is. I covered Mel's hole. It's been a long time ago, though. Let me see what I look like before I share it. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. So if anybody wants to see me covering Mel's hole, I covered Mel's hole. Here.
On the morning of March 17th, 1892, the bodies of Mary Eliza, Mary Olive and Mercy were raised from the cemetery in Exeter, then known as Shrub Hill Cemetery.
It's been a while ago,
Some
but yeah.
sources say that Dr. Metcalf and 4 men travelled to the cemetery
About 2
together
years ago.
to exhume the bodies.
So now they're going to have to exhume some bodies. But I also want to say, since you mentioned Mel's hole, and it brings up Coast to Coast, I do want to say that I am going to be doing a Coast to Coast like thing on the channel Truth Wanted in May, I believe, May or June. One of those. Just a second. I'm looking for where I talk to them, because Kelly, the producer over there, was just mentioning it to me. But there's still some time out. Where I'll just look it up. Kelly R. Kelly Laughlin. That's why I wasn't finding it, because the R, you stuck that R in there, Laughlin. I see what you're up to. Yeah, but we're gonna do a big fundraiser. Yeah, let's see, a paranormal segment with a fundraiser, late night. So it's gonna be like Coast to Coast AM kind of style. And we're gonna explore some paranormal phenomena. We may do some parody sketches. I will have links later, but besides the fundraiser, I think that's it. Yeah, so I'm going to be on Truth Wanted, and we're going to do like a late night Coast to Coast AM sort of thing. We're going to take calls too. An American Strangeness, if you're interested in doing like a call-in show or something like that, let me know, and I'll see if I can't hook you up with Kelly, because he's always looking for fresh blood, like folklorists and science people and stuff that kind of know the truth behind all these, or not the truth, but kind of like understand the nature of all these supernatural claims and stuff, and can really give a honest assessment. But I will warn you that because of the channel that Truth Wanted comes from, which is the atheist community of Austin, a lot of the people are going to want to call in "Are you religion?" too, but I don't do that. I don't do that. And when that comes up, I'm gonna sit back like this. I don't have time in my life anymore to talk about the prime mover or the Kalam cosmological argument or Pascal's wager and all that shit. I'm not interested. I don't care enough at all about that stuff to talk about it. I know when it comes to debating religious people, I kind of, or at least the Abrahamic religious people, I kind of, I've cut myself back or carved myself back to specifically the young Earth creationist people, because I don't have, believe whatever you want about the creation of the universe. I don't give a fuck. But when you're like denying science, like what we saw with Tucker Carlson before this segment started, yeah, I'm going to come at you.
Author Michael E. Bell, in his respected book Food for the Dead, On the Trail of the New England's Vampires, which was a constant reference for me, states that when Metcalf, who attended to Mercy during her illness, went to the cemetery as requested, he found that the men were already present and had taken up the body of Mary Eliza Brown. It was then that the bodies of Mary Olive and Mercy were exhumed. Both Marys had been in the ground for many years by now, so little remained of their corpses apart from traces of mummified flesh, but when they exhumed Mercy, they found her body to be extraordinarily preserved, with blood still present in the heart. Some say that Mercy was placed in a vault at the rear of the cemetery for 2 months prior to burial, because the ground was too hard to dig, having been frozen solid. The fact that Mercy had died during a very cold spell may well have been the reason decomposition.
Oh, I really wish I could go down to because my maps used to have access to go down and do stuff like this where I could go down and see. But we got a guy, I got another channel that I'm going to look at briefly. Just to, he's actually going to go to the grave, so, or to this tomb. So we're going to see that in just a minute. But we're going to get through this one first.
Slowed down, but to the 19th century community, it appeared to be something far more sinister. Her body was also said to be in a different position, and her hair and nails had grown significantly. Dr. Metcalf explained that this second characteristic was natural after death, but regardless of his explanation, it was concluded that Mercy Brown was the culprit, and from beyond the grave, she was feeding off the blood of her dying brother.
So they like open her casket, and most places they have like little trickles of blood on the side of their faces, or that they have more color to their skin, or their nails grow, which is funny because your skin, as your body decomposes, your skin retracts and your nails get longer because it's pulling back from the nail bed. Surviving pterosaurs, which are Thunderbird adjacent, tend to bring out the young Earth creationists. That's where my reporting background comes in useful. Listen, stay neutral, and don't opine. Yeah, right? It's like, because the existent, like, living dinosaurs are a big one for young Earth creationists. They really lean into that Congo dinosaurs and stuff like that. But also, yeah, pterodactyls in Mexico, and yeah, it's all, and that definitely is Thunderbird adjacent. The Lost, yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. American Strangeness did a thing recently on all the Lost Thunderbird photos that have come up over the last, 25, 30 years or so, since the rumor about the Lost Thunderbird photo started. Maybe it's been going on for a little bit longer than that. I know the Lost Thunderbird photo mythology started in like the 70s, and I was like, I was born in the 80s, but I was, like, oh, I swear I remember seeing that photo too when I heard about this in the 90s. But it's a mixture of a lot of things. I did like the idea that the Bushman holding out was it a marabou stork holding out its wings as being part of that.
In her exhumation, her heart and liver were removed and burnt on a rock. The remaining ashes were mixed with water and fed to Edwin. The belief was that this act of cannibalism would reverse the symptoms. The ritual ultimately failed.
Thank you, Aunt Jer. Don't go there now, though, because, yeah, we're just getting started here.
And Edwin Brown died on May the 2nd, 1892, aged 24.
Dave says, but I have a 17-point theological manifesto that definitely proves that God is not impossible. Yeah. That video was awesome, American Strangers. You should be proud of it. It's really good. I watched it with the dogs. I dog sit during the day through the week, and me and the dogs sat on the bed and watched it back here. It was kind of fun. Good work.
The remains of Mercy's violated body was finally laid to rest at Shrub Hill Cemetery. In 1981, an Exeter-based descendant of Mercy Brown by the name of Everett Peck said that he had heard that Mercy Brown's body had changed position in her coffin, and his theory for this was that she may have been buried alive due to poor judgment by the medical examiner. Peck went on to recall a curious incident in the 1960s.
I don't know. Buried alive, is that part of the... Huh. So, her heart and liver were burned. I didn't know about her being buried, or the theory that she was buried alive. That's interesting. But that's just like this guy. I mean, he's not a medical examiner. How would he know?
He was at the cemetery, stood a short distance from Mercy's grave.
Good morning, Theo.
A ball of light hovering above.
We're talking about vampires. I should have dressed as a vampire, but since I'm doing the crystal ball thing, I decided to dress as a witch. But I dress as a witch like almost every day, so.
the ground
I mean, it is
next
what
to
it
the
is.
grave. I was scared to death, he said. I've never seen anything like it before or since. Although he had openly expressed his non-belief in the vampire theory, Everett Peck was sometimes ridiculed in his hometown because local press had in the past written about his experiences in a manner that would suggest that he and his family were uneducated, superstitious people who believed in vampires. In the 19th century, this big city belief that people from New England towns were less than intelligent was apparent. At the time of Mercy
Well,
Brown's
I mean,
exhumation,
that's sort of those are statistics that they use all the time to oppress people. The problem is access to education. People in rural areas, especially back at this time, didn't have access to the level of education that city people did, because they were depending on books that were often decades out of date, incomplete, donated books, things like that is what they had to work with for education for the schoolhouses. Poor rural schoolhouses, that doesn't mean that their students were dumb. It means that they didn't have the resources to teach people, and the don't fall into the mystery hole, like and share the stream instead. Thank you, my unfinished stock. I knew you had it in you. I called the vampire because I allegedly never sleep. I'm called the vampire because I'm undead and I feed off the blood of the living and sleep in a casket like this. That's why they call me that. Yeah, being buried alive. Me and Samantha just watched Kill Bill last week, and that is the most horrifying scene where she's in there doing the punch that Pi taught her to get out. Just the whole being in the casket thing. Oh my god. So yeah, there's an idea that the notion that rural people are bumpkins, or also this extended to indigenous peoples. You know, the way that the learned city Europeans saw the rural living Native Americans, Native Africans, Native Aboriginals of Australia. They just like, oh, these people are just dumb because of their access to knowledge. There's a very, very big difference between your aptitude and your application and what you have access to. So, yeah, and it's also what it also extended down to the slaves, the antebellum slavery, where the black people were so primitive or whatever. I didn't see Sandy. Hold on, where's Sandy? Sandy. No, I come from a rural area, and I object. I'm from rural Missouri.
The newspaper Providence Journal cruelly wrote, "There are considerable elements of rural population in this part of the country, upon which the forces of education and civilization have made scarcely any impression." Everett Peck explained in 1981 that he'd never heard any mention of vampires in the area until interest in the Mercy Brown story had a resurgence.
And you have to wonder if Everett Peck is related to Walter Peck from Ghostbusters. See, Walter Peck with ghosts and Everett Peck with vampires. They're just, yeah. It's funny how Ghostbusters convinced us that the EPA were the bad guys, though. That's so crazy. Yeah, the EPA, the villainous EPA.
In the mid to late 20th century, brought on by media coverage, which attracted tourists to the area who would hold night vigils in the cemetery.
Oh my gosh, what if I'm doing Truth Wanted and Mel calls in about his hole? Could you imagine? Here lies George McFly. And this is Emmett Brown. Look, Brown. Doc Brown right here.
He also explained that the headstone at Mercy's grave had been defaced over time, after people had chipped away at the stone, taking away sections as souvenirs. Mercy Brown's grave today can be found at the same cemetery, now known as Chestnut Hill Cemetery, behind a small white Baptist church. At the rear of the cemetery stands the crypt.
I remember that that Celtic knot background that Sandy's using. It's so pretty. Yeah, Sandy makes glass stuff. She's really cool. If you got if you're into arts and crafts, yeah, I know a lot of you guys are.
Which once contained her body. In August of 1996, the gravestone was taken, by whom is unknown, but it was returned a week later.
No, so you didn't get notifications? Go figure.
It's strongly believed that Mercy Brown was the last exhumed corpse in what would become known as the Vampire Panic of New England.
The vampire. Yeah,
The
these
word
aren't
vampire entered the English.
these aren't Twilight vampires. These aren't these aren't even. This is before Dracula, so these aren't even Count Dracula style vampires. These are old timey Revenant zombie ghost hybrid bloodsuckers of Eastern European origins for the most part. A vampire.
language between 1730 and 1735, and it was not commonly used by family and friends of those afflicted. Newspapers that used the phrase vampire were likely influenced by the vampire beliefs in part of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
But even despite this European influence, the harm caused by the so-called New England vampires were considered to be psychic attacks from beyond the grave, rather than being carried out by walking undead creatures of the night, which was the image often portrayed in old vampire stories from Europe.
Right, that's more like what you think of when you think of a European vampire. It's like a zombie sort of lumbering, one-track mind creature, and they usually inflict their own family members. They're usually attacking their children, their spouses, their parents, things like that. Which, that part of the folklore actually, that's what I like about Stephen King. That actually rolls over into Salem's Lot, because Salem's Lot's vampires are a lot more like this, at least in the book, than they are, than vampires would be in other media. Because I think Stephen King actually did his research on this, on how vampires actually were portrayed in folklore in that part, in their origins. Because they do go back and go after the people that were in their family, or their friends, or their loved ones, and they try to get them to come out and they drink their blood. I mean, Bram Stoker did pull a lot of stuff from this, but he also created a whole new creature kind of based around Vlad Tepes of Wallachia. I think you just like the name Transylvania better, which is funny because when Wallachia it has a certain to it, but I do like Transylvania better. I think it's the V. I think it's the Vania. Anything with Vania, even Pennsylvania sounds more sinister and vampire-y. But maybe that be because vampire starts with a V. Yeah. But yeah, so Stoker kind of built his own mythology and added elements of Strigoi, I think is the word for it, which are sort of in scolomancy. Yes, so his vampire Dracula wasn't just a lumbering vampire. Some of his victims were, but Dracula was a scholomance, which is a sorcerer. That's why he had the ability to turn into fog and control the lightning and stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's his vampire powers. Those aren't vampire powers. Those are scholomance powers, which is where Dracula got his abilities.
However, it's worth mentioning that after Mercy Brown's exhumation, a number of people from Exeter did claim to have previously seen the girl walking in the fields at night, but these claims were not voiced until after her exhumation and reburial. Author Michael
that reminds me, and I think it was about 2019. I think it was 2019. Yeah, my daughter dressed up as Reagan from not Reagan, as Samara from The Ring, and she looked so good. She had a white nightgown, She had white socks on, so it kind of made her look barefoot. And she had this wig, and she put it in her face, and we got her all dirty and put makeup on her and stuff. So she was creepy. On it was Halloween, so it's completely reasonable. But when we were coming home from trick or treating, we saw these these teenagers hanging out smoking on the swing set of the playground, right? And so, well, I had Delilah. Oop, I shouldn't say her name. I had my daughter walk up and just like walk along the chain link fence by the playground. And they stopped. Everybody went quiet, and they just watched her because she looked like we didn't do Halloween costumes. We did full on FX cosplay in my house. I could show you all tons of pictures of bald caps and everything else that we did. Me and my two oldest kids, we went all out. We loved doing FX makeup. That's how I got good at makeup too. But I digress. So she walked up there, and she got to the gate of the gate in the fence and came around the corner. Those kids ran so fast, and I kind of wonder if they didn't create their own kind of folklore around that, where they're like, yeah, we were hanging out at this playground at this closed, because it was a closed school, and we saw a ghosty, vampire-y, stringy-haired ghost girl come at us. And I wonder if that's like something that, because that's how a lot of this stuff happens. It was Halloween. She was trick-or-treating. That was her costume.
Quote, no credible account describes a corpse actually leaving the grave to suck blood, and there is little evidence to suggest that those involved in the practice refer to it as vampirism or to the suspected corpse as a vampire, although newspaper accounts use this term. In fact, after over 30 years of research, Bell says that he found no mention of people affected by the consumption epidemic as ever using the word vampire to describe the afflicted. It became apparent to him that it was just a word used by the
Did
press
they say they were cursed then?
or by outsiders. He does mention, however, that in 2002 he found a graveyard in northern Rhode Island which contained the crumbling heads.
Let's see. DOC, I have to tell you something about the future. Oh, that's Doc. So you're saying DOC like Doc, like Department of Corrections. It's weird, right? You could die a normal death and be forgotten, or be blamed as being a vampire, have your grave desecrated, and gain immortality in vampire lore. What would most of us prefer? I want to be the vampire. I want people to talk about my grave. I want people to mention my name in hushed whispers around freaking campfires. Yeah, that's what I want. My grandmother came to the U.S. from Romania. I wish I had thought to ask her if she knew any local vampire legends. Oh goodness, maybe she told I don't know if it's your dad's mom or your mom's mom. Maybe she told one of your parent some lore though. Maybe you could tap them. I don't know if they're still around or not. Yeah.
Stone of a man named Simon Whipple, who died on May the 6th, 1841.
Pictures of Delilah in her cosplay. Let me see. I've said her name again, but she's 17 now, so it's not like she's a little kid or anything. But let me see. Let me look at my photos. Let me look. See if I. Oh, those are super old. How long ago would that have been? Oh, those are my. Oh, there we go. Let's have a look here. I'll see if I can find one. Oh, you know where they would be. You know where they would be in my photo gallery out here. I might even be able to roll all the way back to that date. Yeah, October. There we go. There's her costume from 2018, so went back too far. A little bit too far. Oh, here we go. Getting into it now. There's that animatronic I made. I made an animatronic Sam. Christ on a stick, where is it? I'm seeing all my other cosplays and stuff, but not the one I'm looking for. And these pictures kind of suck because they're in the dark, but let me see. Yeah, here we go. I'll use this one. All right, so yeah, this is her costume from that year. I don't know if I can zoom in on it or not. Yeah, so all the stuff I made that clock, I made that Necronomicon, I made that shotgun from Evil Dead. I used to make horror props. I made that ashtray, and I made this costume. She's actually barefoot here, though. We didn't make her go out trick-or-treating barefoot or anything, but yeah, that's her costume. So she was pretty spooky.
The only visible portion of the inscription read, "Although consumption's vampire grasp had seized..."
Now, I had a hella cool Leatherface costume at that time, and I had Ian decked out with this Jason Voorhees with a full bald cap and stuff.
Mortal frame. The last few lines of the inscription were missing, but were found to belong to a poem by Eliza Earle, written in 1838.
Oh my gosh, Lovecraft's grave is here too. I guess we can take a quick break from the video to look at the graveyard. So I already got it pulled up. So I mean, you saw it. Don't you hate that? Look at that. When I zoom in, it grids. It did not do that back when it was the globe. It was perfect. It was like one of the most amazing things on the planet Earth. This is like, it literally is like them getting rid of Google and replacing it with AI. That's which they pretty much have done at this point. They're just ruining the internet because they did this. They did this change here that we're dealing with right now for the AI. Look, and I complained about this last week. I'll complain about it every week until they turn it back. They switched from a globe to a Mercrator map. It makes me so mad. This is terrible. Mercrator maps are terrible. This is terrible. Now I lost my spot. And it's harder to navigate because I can't see what it glitches out. Is this Mercy Brown's grave? Or is this? That's it right there. Yeah, it's on that side. All right, zooming back in. And there's my daily my daily rant about Google dropping the ball and ruining Google Maps. Ruining Google Maps. It's ruined now. I've spent years building this map system to chart all of my cryptids that I've covered, all the topics that I've covered. I've covered a lot. Again, look. Look at all that. Every one of those dots is a topic I've covered on CrypticCorner. But nope, they don't care. They just take it all away. Like, oh, we're going to change it now and turn it to this ugly mess. But this is Chestnut Hill Baptist Cemetery. You cannot get into the cemetery, but you can get down to the road by the cemetery. So this is about as close as we're going to get. But it does look exactly like what you want a New England cemetery to look like. A little carved out patch among the trees with ancient looking grave markers, sparse trees, and a little historical looking church. This church looks like it's old. So this is what you expect, or what you come to expect from a New England cemetery. So I do like this. It does look like I'd have fun visiting this. Oh my gosh, I love this stone wall that goes around it, made of cobblestone. And there, you can see, right here, is that crypt we were talking about. We'll get a better view of it in a little bit.
In order to better understand this story, it's worth going back in time a further 100 years, to the beginnings of the vampire panic. In the mid to late 18th century, an outbreak of consumption struck fear into what was then a civilization in its relatively early stages. a civilization that didn't have the understanding of disease and its effects as we do now. Consumption was named as such because of the all-consuming effects it had on the sufferer, resulting in severe physical deterioration before death. It was one of the leading causes of death in 19th century North America, not to mention its effects on Europe, and triggered a widespread panic as it swept through New England and the surrounding areas.
That's a hell of a way to go. Consumption's a hell of a way to go. I would love to see it at night, though. I like going to a cemetery at night. That's my favorite. Most cemeteries are closed at sundown, though. That's the worst part, because in order to be there, you have to break the law, which I'm too old to do now. I did when I was a teenager all the time, maybe even when I was in my 20s, but I can't afford to get like trespassing charges for being in the cemetery at night. Like, I always kind of wondered, though, if that did happen, and I was like, look, I'm a witch, and I needed to get graveyard dirt under the specific moon. I don't know what to tell you, and see how the courts would appeal to that religious, how they would respond to that religious appeal.
By the year 1800, 1 in every 250 people in eastern USA was dying of consumption, and it accounted for 25% of all deaths. Nobody yet knew that the disease was airborne, so when one person in a family contracted it, it didn't take long for their other family members to follow. Those who showed symptoms, like Edwin Brown, were often sent to areas with milder climates in the hope that it would bring sufferers back to health. While this sometimes helped alleviate symptoms, it was...
Famously, Doc Holliday went out to Tombstone, Arizona, because of his tuberculosis. That's a famous part of that of the whole shoot out the OK Corral. Doc Holliday suffering from tuberculosis and following this trend of going out to the desert where it's drier, in order to help combat the effects of the disease.
Also responsible for the further spread of the disease. Author of 1990's Vampires, Burial and Death, Paul Barber, wrote in his book that the outbreak spread so rapidly that darker forces were thought to be at hand, and people were actually prompted to seek out these so-called vampires to stop them destroying their friends and families. An 1896 issue of American Anthropologist includes an essay by George R. Stetson entitled The Animalistic Vampire in New England. In it, he links the behaviour attributed to the so-called New England vampire with cases recorded in Europe. Like the New England belief that the undead do not stop at one family member, cases...
Tombstone is like the best Western of all time. That's true. Good morning, Reverb Twang.
Found in Hungary, Turkey and Romania have said that a vampire continues to kill until the last member of the family is dead. One particular case stands out. This story, an alleged retelling of a personal experience by a Romanian family, is said to be from the early 20th century, so after the events that took place in New England, but the specifics of this story are startlingly similar to those in the Mercy Brown case. The story goes that an old Romanian woman died after suffering from an unspecified illness. The children of her eldest son were then claimed by the sickness, then the children of her youngest son. In an attempt to end the string of deaths, her sons dug up her body.
The Magnificent Seven is the best Western of all time. All right, y'all gotta fight that out in the comment or in the chat. It's a soft spot for Maverick, the Mel Gibson one.
Cut her in two and reburied her. When another child died, she was exhumed for a second time, but found to be in one piece with no signs of a wound. They then took her body into a remote forest and placed it under a tree. The story goes on to say, there they disemboweled her, took out her heart, from which blood was flowing, cut it in four.
I will tell you, I like Weird West. Weird West is one of my favorite genres. So, cowboys and vampires, hell yeah.
On hot cinders and burnt it. They took the ashes and gave them to the children to drink with water. They threw the body on the fire, burnt it, and buried the ashes of the body. The deaths ceased. The act of adding the ashes to water and feeding them to the surviving children is uncannily similar to what happened when Edwin Brown drank the ashes of his sister. Although the date of this story is after the Mercy Brown incident, it's possible that similar cases had previously occurred in Europe before the time of Mercy Brown. So could this belief in New England be attributed to settlers in the US who brought with them old European folklore tales? At the time, many New Englanders blamed the disease on Native Americans, denying that it could have originated from their own ancestors.
Is no one going to pick Will Smith's Wild Wild West? Come on.
Who had begun to arrive on US shores in the early 17th century. A Providence Journal article written after the exhumation of Mercy Brown claimed that residents of her hometown had said that vampirism was the practice of Native Americans.
What?
The macabre ritual that...
What? Vampirism is the practice of Native Americans. Which... Okay, so that's a blanket statement. Which group? And was it... Are you talking about, like, rituals that involve, cutting blood and putting it in something and drinking it? Or putting blood in something and drinking it? Or are you, like, claiming that Native Americans were stalking people at night and biting their necks? A lot of wiggle room there with that claim.
Brown after her death was just one instance of many like it. Here are the stories behind some of the others. (1784) saw the first recorded New England example of exhumation and mutilation as a cure for the spread of contagion.
I do like Tombstone. I like Young Guns too. Young Guns is one of it's silly but and campy, but it's fun.
An unnamed doctor who said he knew of a most unusual cure for consumption contacted a suffering family from Wellington, Connecticut.
I've not seen The Hateful Eight, but I do like Tarantino. Like I said, we just watched Kill Bill.
The Johnson family had, in the last 2 years, lost 2 family members, a son named Amos and a daughter named Elizabeth. A third child was said to be gravely ill. The doctor instructed their father, Isaac Johnson, to dig up the bodies of his children and search for the signs of plant growth through their vital organs. On June the 1st, 1784, the bodies were dug up. When one of the bodies was found to have a plant growing out of it, the doctor told Isaac that he should burn the weed, as well as their hearts, in order to rid the family of the disease. Their corpses were then exhumed, and organs were removed.
The organs were removed is, generally speaking, and you'll see this in some graveyards still, there's certain implementations that they put in place so that if the dead tries to rise, that they will, like, impale themselves. Because removing the head and the heart and all that stuff, or destroying the head or the brain and the heart, sometimes there's other organs too, but those were the main ones, is actually a true part of the mythology. Now it comes down to, like, being like, oh, you have to stab the heart with a holly stake or whatever, an oak stake, white oak stake, all different, rose stake. It doesn't, the wood changes and different versions of the fake lore, but none of that was part of the original. But definitely destroying the heart was thought to be what would stop a vampire, because of their link to blood, and the heart being the muscle associated with blood.
Doctors' belief that destroying any plant found growing from the bodies would save the surviving family members was ridiculed. In June of...
The doctor said that. The doctor said that if you get plants growing from the body, if you save those, they'll cure your family from being afflicted by the disease.
1784, a Hartford, Connecticut newspaper...
That's a doctor.
...described him as a quack doctor.
Oh, a quack doctor. Well, that changes things. Quack doctors are different.
And said that the public ought to be aware of this impostor. 15 years after the ritual, Isaac Johnson suffered a tragic death. On December 23, 1799, while carrying the timbers of a newly erected church, he was pinned to the ground by one of these timbers and killed outright. His blood was said to have remained visible on the wooden beam for more than 30 years. This may have been seen as divine retribution by many for his actions in 1784. An article printed in an 1884 issue of the Vermont Historical Magazine sheds light on the doctor's unusual theory. It said, Among the superstitions of those days, we find it was said that a vine or root of some kind grew from coffin to coffin of those of one family who died of consumption and were buried side by side, and when the growing vine had reached the coffin of the last one buried, another one of the family would die. The only way to destroy the influence or effect was to break the vine, take up the body of the last one buried, and burn the vitals.
Please, you all are welcome to burn my vitals if you feel it's necessary upon my demise, okay? If you think you need to burn my vitals, or better yet, you could save them in little jars and put them on display. Actually, I like that better. Let's do that. I'm gonna start a bidding war on who gets what when I pass away. I'm gonna go ahead and start a poll here, and you all can just pick which part you want.
A man by the name of Bristow Congdon, along with 3 of his many children, had died of consumption. One of the children was exhumed, and just like the previous cases, had their vital organs burnt in the hope that it would save the remaining family. It's unknown whether this worked. When writing about the Congdon family case, Frederick Denison, in his 1878 book, Westerly and Its Witnesses, described the act as a shallow and disgusting superstition, but then went on to say that similar cases have occurred in more enlightened families. Denison's book was an account specific to the town of Westerly in southwest Rhode Island. The case of Bristow Congdon and his children is the first reported case involving an African American family. This event happened in the mid-19th century, but no specific year was given.
No. So vote on the polls, guys.
In 1854, the Connecticut paper The Norwich Courier reported on a case that occurred in Duet City in the same year. A man by the name of Henry Ray, sick with consumption, had already suffered the deaths of his 2
down
brothers,
to the bottom now.
the last passing away.
Did they move while the polls display? That's interesting. Now it's down to the bottom.
In 1852.
Interesting.
His brothers were to be dug up and cremated because it was feared they would ultimately be the demise of Henry Ray. On May the 8th, 1854, family and friends proceeded to the burial grounds, dug them up and burned their bodies on the spot. I should mention that the man at the centre of this case has, in past reports, been referred to as Horace Ray. According to the Providence Journal, in 1874, a 53-year-old man named William Rose, with the help of his friend Charles Harrington, exhumed the bodies of his son and daughter, buried near the shore of the Saugatucket River in South Kingstown. The siblings had died of consumption, and in an attempt to save his remaining family, he exhumed the bodies with a plan to burn their hearts and consume the ashes. His son had died of the disease 12 years prior, and on exhumation, both his coffin and body were found to be all but destroyed by decomposition. However, when he raised the body of his daughter, who had been in the ground for 7 years, he found that her coffin was in almost perfect condition, and that she was only partially decomposed. On seeing this, he believed that she was the cause of the curse, and removed what was left of her heart. He then set it alight, watched it burn, and consumed the remains. As an interesting footnote to this story, it's revealed that William Rose knew George Brown, Mercy Brown's father, and one day expressed his sympathy to George Brown in the wake of the death of his wife and daughters. He then told George his own story, and how he went about stopping the spread of the contagion. Could William Rose of South Kingstown have been the true influence behind George Brown's decision to exhume his wife and daughters? Author Sidney S. Ryder's 1888 The Belief in Vampires tells the story of the Tillinghast family from Exeter, Rhode Island. The tale of Stuckley Tillinghast, his wife Honor Tillinghast, and their 14 children begins in 1799. After Mr. Tillinghast dreamt that his orchard of trees were withering away one by one, he became concerned. He did not know what it meant, but soon after his dream, his daughter Sarah fell ill with consumption. She passed away after a short bout with the disease, soon to be followed by her younger sister. In the weeks leading up to Sarah's death, her younger sister had complained of nightmares in which Sarah was appearing in her room every night and sitting on her as she lay in bed, causing pain and discomfort. Similar visions haunted the other children in the family, and eventually 6 of the 14 Tillinghast children had died from the same disease. But when a seventh
tuberculosis
child,
is
James, became
tuberculosis is contagious, highly contagious. So it makes sense that multiple people in the family would
sick,
be inflicted with that.
Also began to complain of the same dream, fearing that she and her son would soon suffer the same fate. Friends and neighbours were called together, and it was agreed that all 6 children would be exhumed from their graves and their hearts burnt. When the exhumations took place, all was said to be in a bad state of decomposition, but Sarah Tillinghast, the eldest and first to die, was said to be in a remarkably good condition. Her eyes were open, her hair and nails had grown, and her heart was said to contain fresh blood. It was then removed, taken to a rock within the family's home and burnt. It's often been reported that Honor Tillinghast survived, but James did not. But this part of the story was thrown into confusion in 1995, when the will of the same James Tillinghast was found by his descendants. It was dated 1810, meaning that he lived well beyond Sarah's exhumation. The Tillinghast story has been written about and told many times over the years, with variations of details each time. Therefore it's difficult, as it is with all of these cases, to be 100% accurate. There are many Tillinghast family plots in New England, but the Tillinghasts in question here are buried at the Rhode Island Historical Cemetery 14, although many of the graves have now sunken or disappeared completely. Frederick Ransom of South Woodstock, Vermont, died of consumption on February 14, 1817, at the age of 20. His father, who had heard of the grisly consumption remedy and had faith in it, was sure that Frederick's illness would soon befall his remaining family. So he had his son's heart removed after exhumation and destroyed it in fire. This, however, did not save Frederick's mother, sister and 2 of his brothers, but his younger brother Daniel did survive and lived into his 80s. Daniel Ransom's memoirs include a message describing how his father burnt the organ in a blacksmith's forge. All the stories I have found are, in essence, very similar, as you have heard, so I won't go on for fear of repetition. However, there is one more case that needs to be addressed. It doesn't involve the consumption epidemic or incinerated organs, but it is a legend that attracted a lot of attention from the late 20th century until the present day. The West Greenwich case of Nellie Vaughan stands alone in the sense that it was never actually cited in any publication until 1977, when it appeared in the Rhode Island newspaper Westerly Sun. This story appears to be a classic case of urban legend, a story that spread from person to person after a single misunderstanding of the facts. According to Michael E. Bell, the earliest verbal reference to Nellie Vaughan as a vampire was a story told to high school students by a teacher at Coventry High School, Rhode Island, sometime in the late 1960s or early 70s. He could find no information about the elusive high school teacher, but Bell concludes that if a story had been told, the teller was simply relaying the story of Mercy Brown having forgotten her name, and it was the students whom, after going in search of the grave, stumbled across the wrong plot at Plain Meeting House Baptist Church in Greenwich, which lies only 15 miles west of Chestnut Hill Cemetery, the location of Mercy Brown's grave. On reading the now famous inscription on Nellie Vaughan's tombstone, "I am waiting and watching for you," it is possible that the excited teenagers assumed this to be the correct grave, giving birth to a new urban legend. One of the most commonly talked about aspects of the case is that no vegetation grows on the grave of Nellie Vaughan. This has been attributed to the belief that the site is cursed and therefore no living organism could survive on or around the tombstone. Skeptics believe that this is simply a case of wear and tear. The fact that her grave is so commonly visited, touched and tampered with, means that no vegetation has the chance to claim the stone. The consumption disease and the burning of organs have been added to the Nellie Vaughan story over time.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, Nellie Vaughan died of pneumonia, not consumption, on March 31st, 1889. Her body was exhumed, though, on October 26, 1889, by the request of her mother. Nellie was moved from the family farm plot to the West Greenwich Baptist Church Cemetery, also known as Plain Meeting House Cemetery in West Greenwich, Rhode Island, but this didn't involve any kind of mutilation ritual. It's likely that this exhumation fueled the fires of urban legend, leading storytellers to believe that her spirit was restless after being moved. The inscription on the gravestone, "I am waiting and watching for you," was probably intended to mean watching from heaven, a far more pleasant message than the sinister one that has been passed down over the years since the legend began. Interestingly, the statements of a man, whom in the 1980s was over 100 years old and claimed to know Nellie Vaughan personally, said that there had never been any talk of her being a vampire before or after her death. That is, until the 1970s.
Yeah, when the folklore started.
Along with the tales of vampirism, also accompany the Nellie Vaughan story. Some have claimed to have seen a woman in Victorian dress walking the grounds of the cemetery, especially around the tombstone of Nellie Vaughan. There are also stories of auditory phenomenon, most commonly from people who have said that they've heard a woman say, "I am perfectly pleasant." This was reportedly first heard in 1993 by a Coventry man, who also claims to have been scratched by an unseen hand, leaving visible marks on his face. The alleged message from Nellie Vaughan is often cited as meaning, "I am friendly, I am not a vampire." Due to vandalism over the years, the gravestone was eventually moved to an undisclosed location, but as far as ghost hunters and curious tourists are concerned, this has only added to the mystique of Nellie Vaughan. The New England vampire panic may not have been a tale of classic Hollywood vampirism, but it has influenced the romantic image of the vampire that we're familiar with today. For example, following the death of Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula in 1897, newspaper accounts of the Mercy Brown story were said to be found in his files. Stephen King may have also been influenced by these stories, especially the Nellie Vaughan case, which was at the height of its popularity.
So yeah, this is going to explain why Stephen King's story has so much more in alignment with the folklore of vampires than a lot of everything else that's been like basically derived from Dracula since.
At the time he wrote Salem's Lot, a vampire story set in 1970s New England.
All right, so that was that. That's actually really good. I'm going to subscribe. I recommend other people to subscribe to this too. In the poll there too. And all right, so this gentleman, he goes out here to the graveyard. I don't want to cover the whole thing. It just because most of it's just him retelling the story while he's on camera, which doesn't make for great content for me. So, but he goes out. This is the crypt.
Mary, Mercy. All right, so let's get a look, see what we can see here. I'm not looking. Oh, okay. All right, so it has been completely sealed up underneath.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, kind of makes you feel a little bit better, but you can see in here, over top. I can see in. Let's see what you can see. And there you go. So there's some racks on the side. Apparently, I don't know if you can see them. I can see what I'm looking at on my camera. But this is where her above ground casket was.
Right.
On some like hinges or some racks on the side. Wow. Oh, I'm not. No, it's hard to tell which is which. But that's. Then you go to the left side, the right side. But I don't see it. My goodness. So there's that crypt behind me. There's some weird sounds around here, like animals or something in the background. I wasn't expecting to be able to see inside them. So Mercy Brown, 19 years old. They thought she was a vampire.
All right, so that's Mercy Brown. And you can kind of see the grave from over here. The church is Chestnut Hill Baptist Church. Got a nice full cemetery over here. But yeah, it's back in there. There might be more than one of these. I'm pretty sure that's the one, though, based on the pictures that I've seen elsewhere. Pretty sure, but you can see other ones back in there. There's one right there. So it's hard to say. Anyway, so what do you guys think of our vampire in New England, Miss Mercy Brown? Was she really a vampire? Is this just folklore, fake lore? Let me know in the comments down below. And please remember to be kind, take care, and see you next time.